Welcome to Swim, education for coaches, athletes, and parents, the only podcast dedicated to club swimming. You've selected part 3, which is going to give you a summary of the topic about relationships between coaches, athletes, and parents, and some advice that we have for swimmers. If you're interested in learning more about what we say to coaches or also what the topic is, listen to the full podcast, which is on Spotify, Apple, and iHeart, or on YouTube, and listen to the other parts preceding this, which is part 1 and part 2. Yeah, no, and I mean, that's what we want to talk about today is relationships. Yeah. And we want to kind of look at how do you build those lasting relationships, because you can do all the right things and the relationship doesn't work out. And what I mean by work out is not you have a bad relationship. We're just saying how you want to try to make those lasting relationships with those that you poured so much time and effort into. What are the guardrails or what are the rules that really kind of set you up for that?
Yeah, and I think to clarify, when we say rules, there's obviously safe sport rules.
Right, those are hard and fast.
Right, like I'm sure that there's a lot of coaches and swimmers that are like, well, yeah, there's safe sport. We're talking within the safe sports rules of that to build good relationships and lasting relationships that will grow throughout a swimmer's career in life, really.
Right.
To me, I think it starts out with number one, the culture that you have on your team.
Yes, absolutely.
And what I mean by that is, asking a kid about who they really are and, and checking in with them.
Right.
We know now a lot of this goes along with the mental health stuff, right? Like,
right.
We know the importance of getting to know the kids that we're coaching, getting to know their mannerisms, getting to know if they're having a bad day so we can help better lead them and guide them.
Right.
But I also know a lot of coaches that emotionally are just not those humans themselves. When I say that, I just mean we all know that there's just certain people who are not good at emotionally communicating with people. So I think, to me, it is that emotional communication, whether it's just when the little kid's just coming in and saying, hey, how was your day? What was your favorite subject today? What did you play at recess?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's stuff like that, that is the very beginning of the building blocks of establishing those good relationships and those repertoire with your athletes, that then as they get older, they'll come to you and you'll have better communication skills.
I think personality is the starting point. So if I'm a first year coach, if I'm brand new, I just came out of my swimming career, I'm going to mimic whatever coach I had. Yeah. Because that's what I know. Okay. Yeah. So whether that's good or bad, and for me, it was good in some ways and it was detrimental in other ways. Yeah. Knowing the technique, I was taught that as a swimmer, I was a very good tacticianer. As far as getting upset and being emotional, I was taught the firebrand that was my coach. Then there's a learn part of it, in which you as a coach, you have to want to learn how to be better.
Yeah.
And if we're going to talk about, and that can be in any realm, but if we're going to talk about relationships, the first question you got to ask yourself is, what type of relationship do I want to have with my athletes?
Yes.
Okay. And that's in that viewpoint is predicated upon what do I think is the value of the service I'm providing. Okay. Yeah. So if my service is, my job is to make every swimmer I have elite, I'm going to have a very different viewpoint than every swimmer I coach is potentially a coach in the future. If that's the case, then what kind of relationship do I want to have with my athletes so that their first and second year have a proper relationship with their swimmers? And that comes down to what kind of relationship do you want to have during swimming, outside of swimming, and then after swimming. So during, outside of, and after, I think is 3 areas you really need to think about. Yeah. And define that for yourself so that you're building up those relationships. And then, I mean, obviously age needs to be appropriate as far as that goes. But also, so there's a distance that you have to have. But I think if you think of yourself as only a coach, reflecting what the parents value and really kind of building them up as a future coach, I think that's a healthy way of looking at relationships.
Times I've had a lot of coaches, say, oh, well, I don't want to get involved. Well, you are involved because
there's a line there. Okay. So what, in your opinion, do you get involved with and what do you not get involved with?
Correct.
There's some coaches that say, if it doesn't happen on my deck with my team, it's none of my business. I've never been that.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking out for, holistically. And so I'm a little bit more inclusive of what's going on. We had a pool that we rented at a golf course and there was a fence and the parents had to stay outside the fence. So for you, involving yourself in the swimmer's world, what is outside the fence and what is inside the fence? And so I'm asking you, where's your line drawn?
I figured out where my line was because of being a zone coach for so many years. Through zones, I got to watch a generation of swimmers that went from phones really not being an issue,
right,
to social media, Snapchat, bullying, cyberbullying.
Right.
I went from when swimmers, I will say there's a particular swimsuit that girls wear that can be quite revealing in swimming.
Right.
And going from that really wasn't a thing to now. So it taught me where my line was that if the safety and well-being mentally and physically of the swimmer is in jeopardy, or another swimmer on that team, that is an immediate direct route to those parents. No, you cannot control what people do outside when they're not in your pool deck, when they're not doing anything else. But again, that's where I say with that line comes that relationship and respect factor, where I can tell you my kids are constantly told, when you are out in that community, you represent our team.
Right.
Even though you are off the clock, even though you are not on here, people in this community know who you swim for and know who you are. So be aware when you're having conversations and you're doing things, it gets back to me. And it very much does.
Oh, yeah. Quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. And
yeah, no, absolutely has. And that's where, I've had parents come up to me many different times. Hey, they have friends or they have a girlfriend or they have a boyfriend who I don't really like. Can you talk to them about it? I mean, if it comes up, if they bring it up, then I'll say something. But otherwise, no, that's outside my fence.
Right.
I mean, I care about them, but that's inside your backyard. That is inside your house. And so you've got to take the bull by the horns on that one. I'm going to just say, now, if they're dating somebody on the team or it's affecting other people on the team and it becomes something that needs to be addressed so that everybody can perform to the best of their ability, then of course I'm going to say something. But that's where my fence line is. It's kind of like, okay, if it affects the team, then yes, I'll say something about it. If it's only affecting that individual or only affecting that family, and it's really outside of my purview, then I'm not going to do anything. So use the resources you have to set up the relationships within the team. And that also means the relationships you have coach to coach. The question you have is, okay, so as a head coach, what kind of relationship do I want to have with my assistant coaches?
Yep.
And then what kind of relationships do I want them to have with the team? And so it's this two-step down. And then the other question is, what kind of relationship do I want the assistants to have with me as a head coach? And so, and you can say, well, the relationship you have with the assistants is exactly the same as you have the assistants with the head coach. That is not true at all.
No.
I always wanted to be a mentor to my assistant coaches. I always wanted them to come around and coach with me every once in a while. And so I could show them what I'm doing, or I would show up early and coach with them so that I could give them instruction and then give them help where they felt very confident. The reverse now, they can ask questions.
Yeah.
Where I'm teaching, they're asking questions. Those go together. If I was starting my coaching career again and I was blessed to have a lot of coaches that wanted to mentor me, that is what I would be looking for in a staff relationship.
Yeah.
And building that up and then being taught, how do you want me to deal with conflicts, specific conflicts that might occur within the team between coaches and parents, parents and athletes, athletes and coaches?
As a female coach, I think this is something that is very important.
Right.
That when I was being mentored, I was very lucky, the numerous teams that I was on, that I had really respectful, strong male figures and they always, looked out for my safety, their safety. And really that was before Safe Sport became as intricate as it is now.
Right.
And so have I been put in a situation as a female assistant coach in my career that made me terribly uncomfortable? Absolutely. I say that because I know throughout my career, I have had this discussion with a lot of female coaches that sometimes you don't know where that line is, where you get to say that this makes me really uncomfortable. I don't think that this is like supposed to be how this interaction or this head coach to assistant coach relationship is supposed to be.
Right.
I feel, like I'm just not in a safe environment. And, swimming is getting a lot better about it. Most sports, it's getting a lot better about it, where it's not so male eccentric. There
Right.
are normally more than one female on staff most of the time now, but one of my favorite stories is, and, she's actually works for USA Swimming now, but Beth Winkowski.
Right.
There was a point where it might have been my second sectionals, or it was a bigger meet, but I was at finals and I looked down the pool deck and it's just me and Beth. We're the only females
Right.
on the pool deck. And I was like, huh?
Right.
And that was really a light bulb for me of to say to myself, wow, there could be a lot of females who would be very uncomfortable with that.
Right.
And it's our job to make sure that even with other coaches that are on other teams, that everyone feels comfortable. We're not in somebody's personal space. Those relationships even are what help, you build your team, your repertoire, all of that stuff.
Right. Yeah, and I think Safe Sport's a good guide. I think that other things that are important for coaches, for me, at least whenever I was, is having relationships with coaches within the team, that are professional, and I can use them as sounding boards. But having those relationships outside of your team that can be a sounding board, so that if something's going on inside the team, you have an outside view. There's been several times that I've been asked by another coach, here's what's going on with me and the team. What do you think from an outside perspective? And I disagree with them because they're in the middle of it.
Yep.
And they see it as unfair. And I would say, well, if I was the head coach and this is what was going on, it's not unfair.
We lose so many coaches because of the reality that they're not able to be human.
Right.
And I say that because I think this is such a huge part of the relationship factor.
Right.
That if you have a head coach or an assistant coach that you are demanding on what's supposed to be their off time, that they're answering phones and text messages and answering emails, or when they're supposed to be on vacation with their family, you're still contacting them, or you're allowing, as a board, parents to just alienate them and run them down and there be no protection of them. You are not only destroying an individual, but you're destroying our sport.
Right.
And those relationships go not just with swimmers and parents, right? But as I just brought up, board members. That if you've got a board ran swim team, you need to have those relationships that your board has your back.
Yes, 100%.
And
first and foremost.
Yes, first and foremost. And it doesn't mean that they have your back for you to be a bad human being.
Right, of course.
It means that they have your back when, too much is being asked of you.
Right.
When you need a mental break, when you need somebody to advocate for you. It should never be that a board is demanding something out of a coach that sacrifices their health, sacrifices their mental health,
right.
And sacrifices their family. And I'm really proud of USA Swimming as a sport as a whole, because I do feel like that is becoming more and more important and people are being more and more vocal about it. I love that because I think so many of us have experienced burnout
Right.
We've experienced not being supported. We've, a lot of us have trauma from it,
Right.
whether we like to admit it or not. But I love that now so many people are realizing the importance of all of those things to build a better relationship, to build a better environment for the team as a whole. So, swimmers and parents and boards and coaches, it's just so important that you realize everyone is human. And no matter how much you want to avoid it, the reality of it is we have human emotions, we have human interactions, and you will be better for it if you are more thoughtful about those things on a daily basis
Right.
for everyone involved in the situation. So I from a personal standpoint, can say the best clubs that are in existence right now, you will see their staff on those pool decks laughing together,
Right.
smiling together. You will see a head coach that is healthy. And I don't just mean physically, I mean mentally too.
Right.
That they are taking time for their family still, they are taking time for themselves still. And if that environment does not exist, you need to figure out a way how to make it happen.
Yes.
Sure.
Now, you're not going to get the best out of your team or other swimmers if you're not healthy.
Yeah.
That's a given. You have to be mentally, physically, emotionally, socially. You got to get along.
Yeah.
And I think that in the same way, if I walk onto a pool deck, I want to see, as a head coach, I want to see my assistant coaches having fun. I want them laughing. I want to be able to joke with them. I want to be able to share stories about what's going on in my life outside of swimming, so they get to know me holistically. They get to know my kids. They get to know my wife. We're not hanging out. We might have a coaching staff dinner. We're not having just some coaches over and other coaches not, because that's a realm of a team. And so I'm going to keep everything together that way. And I'm going to package that and say, okay, that's my team life. And I want my family as part of my team life, but I don't want the team life as part of my family. Right. And they're not friends, they're colleagues. And though I have a very close relationship with some of them I communicate with on a regular basis as they've moved on to other teams. And so we stay collegial and a mentor relationship, and that grows. It's healthy because I didn't put them in the wrong category.
Yeah.
But you have to have healthy relationships regardless. And when they're not healthy, that toxicity goes everywhere. So if you're not having a good relationship with the coaches on deck, the swimmers and the parents will feel it. And then that gives them permission to act out in the same way that they see you acting out. Right? Because of the healthy relationship within the coaching staff that we were demonstrating to the swimmers and the parents, that gives you the platform to have the relationship with the athletes and parents that is respected, respectable, safe, and collegial in a sense, because you're working with the athlete and the parent for the good of the athlete and the team. All right, so what advice would you give to athletes as far as building a relationship with their coaches and other teammates?
So athletes, it's the same thing that, I'll repeat it because my swimmers who have been with me for many, many years know this, that, I say the coaches are not your parents.
Right.
But we do need to know, number one, if there's something going on, because we can't help you if you do not feel comfortable enough to tell us if something is going on. And by that, it's not necessarily that you broke up with your girlfriend or boyfriend. It is, today I had a really bad day at school, somebody bullied me. Today I
didn't get enough sleep last night because I was up all night.
I didn't get enough sleep last night, and I need to go at the back of the lane. That is the kind of relationship that you need to build with your coaches. But you've also got to be respectful in the fact that, number one, you shouldn't know your coach's whole personal life. There is a difference between, you can know, what their kid did yesterday, if, they're talking about it. You don't need to know how their relationship is going with their spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend. You don't need to know what they do on their spare time. I mean, that's none of your business. But you need to feel comfortable enough with the coach that you have that they can guide you, they can help you when something is wrong. You feel like you can go to them, because that is going to make you a better athlete. It is going to help you work harder, and it is going to help you buy into the program that your coach is presenting to you.
Right.
If you never come forward to establish that connection with whoever that coach is that's coaching you for that season, or numerous coaches, then when something is wrong, it's going to be very hard for that coach to help you. And it's the simplest thing that I can reference of even an injury. If you are not open enough to have that discussion with your coach, that I've been seeing a PT and doing these exercises, this is what's going on with my shoulder, this is what they've told me to do, that's part of your relationship and your communication that is very key to your success.
Absolutely.
And if you are not having that relationship where you can come to them and say those things, eventually it will plateau you. It will make you take steps back. Whereas if an athlete feels comfortable to have discussions when something is wrong, they are going to be far more successful when everything is right.
Yes.
So that's my first one. And my second one is the same thing that we just told coaches.
Right.
If you are in an environment where you are being threatened, you are being belittled, you are being made to feel like you are a machine and not a human being, that is not an environment that not only USA Swimming does not accept, Safe Sport does not accept, and you should not accept as an athlete.
Right.
You are more than the sport of swimming.
Right.
And it should never be a situation where you are brought to tears, you are brought to questioning your self-worth.
Right.
You are, that is not a healthy environment. And no matter, this is a very big key thing that if I could shout it to the world, I would.
All right.
If you're in a team that the coaches have made an unhealthy environment and you are staying because your friends are there, because you don't want to leave your friends, but you know that it's not a situation that is helping you thrive as a human,
right,
you have to make the choice for yourself and your success in and out of the pool, just as a human being, to walk away and find an environment that is conducive to your personality, your values, and who you are. There is no amount of success that is worth your mental and physical well-being.
Right.
And there are millions of athletes that you can read their books and read their stories that will tell you the exact same thing.
Right.
There are very bad coaches out there that will convince you that if you leave their program or you go somewhere else, you will never succeed. You will never be a great athlete.
Right. And that's not true.
But in turn, the damage that is done is something that most of the time is irreparable for the rest of your life. So be brave, seek help, talk to your parents, make sure that those relationships are healthy and match up with what your values as a family and a human being are. So
Yes.
you can succeed in the sport that you love.
Yeah, I mean, there's several elite swimmers that I know that are still dealing with the fallout from a coach.
Yes.
Where they make a national team. They want to call the coach up. The coach never calls them. They call the coach up, and they can't deal with it. And it's because the relationship, they were doing extra work and they were highly successful, but the cost of it is their emotional and psychological health.
Yes.
And there's swimmers that are talking about that now, which is really great. And so that's good. So the guardrails I would put on this for swimmers is very simple. Okay. Talk only about swimming stuff with your coach.
Yeah.
Anything that directly affects swimming. Now, that could open up a Pandora's box of everything. My mental capacity and how I feel and everything could be based on school and relationships and family and all that. Yeah, boil it down to swimming. Mm-hmm. Okay. So for instance, I walk in, hey, how was your day going? It was a crap day. Didn't do well on a test. Okay, cool. Does that affect your swimming? Yes. Is that something that is appropriate professionally? Yes, it is. But, I don't need to, the coach doesn't need to know the ins and outs of your relationship with your parents and everything that's being said, and your relationships with boyfriends and girlfriends, and your relationships with all the other people that are way outside, your extended family and all this. And a coach shouldn't be telling you about their personal relationships by any stretch of the imagination. Keep it professional. Talk, but you need to talk about those things. I was up late last night studying all night. I'm not sure what I can do. If I was the coach, I would say, why don't you do a meet warm up and see how you feel? If you're exhausted, go home and get some sleep.
Correct.
See, that's a very professional relationship right there. That's very good. And you can ask for advice. I had one swimmer that came up to me and said, I got in trouble with my parents, but they're going to punish me for one thing, but I really did something different. And I don't want the punishment at all, but I understand what I did was really kind of boneheaded. What do I do? Okay.
Right.
You're not going to get past this until we talk about it at swim practice. So we're going to make it real. And it was before this individual's practice. So I could be very pinpointed and say, go to your parents and say, I know you're accusing me of this, but it was really over here. Punish me for this. And I want you to show maturity. And I talk to them about being responsible and how they can be a responsible individual. Yes, that's getting on the personal side. But again, I'm talking about responsibility. I'm not talking about their personal relationship with their parents. So swimmers need to come and be comfortable sharing that type of information with their coach, but just say, does it affect my swimming? Yes. Does it really affect my swimming? Well, no. If this really doesn't affect my swimming, then don't talk about it.
Yep.
And I think that if you keep that in mind, that's really good. Now, caveat to the tiers at practice. Small asterisk there.
Yeah.
If they're young swimmers and they're bawling before they come to practice, parents keep bringing them into practice. Because more than likely they're playing video games or hanging out with their friends or hungry or something, and they don't want to come to practice because they're in a mode and they don't want to switch. Now, if they're in tears after practice, talk to your coach immediately. Because even before I go and work out, like with Coleman, we talked about at the end, I was not looking forward to it necessarily. I wanted to spend time with Coleman and see how he's doing, but I did not feel like lifting. And then today I'm sore as all get out, and I wish I maybe wouldn't have done so much. But afterwards, I felt really good. And so that's what we want to go with. But I think, outside of that caveat, you can have an emotional day and you can have something going on, and the coach can talk to you about what's going on. But again, to be professional, keep it about swimming and build that up slowly. And if you do that, then you're not going to get attachments that are unhealthy. You're not going to be leaning on the coach for more than what the coach should and can give. Right. And so you're not tearing down that relationship in the end. It's healthy. And that's what you want to do. So build a healthy relationship by keeping the professional guidelines on.